Thank you as well for the invitation to come and be a part of what really is an important transition for this congregation, and I'm honored that you would allow me to come and be a part of this. I know auditorium classrooms can be somewhat of a challenge in terms of just kind of the dynamics, the interaction, because it's a large room and people sit, quite spread out, and that's kind of customary, and I recognize that happens. I hope, though, that the distance that I might have between some of you who are towards the back, that we might be able to overcome some of that, and at times we'll have chances where I will ask if there are any questions. Please feel free to stand up, shout, whatever you need to do to ask your question. I do want to make sure that this time is as interactive as you desire it to be. I do have a lot of information that I could share with you, but I think your ownership of the information would make the material much more relevant to you. What I have decided to do is when I met with the leadership group last month, there were 3 particular stages of any transitions that go on, and we covered all 3 of those stages. We do not have the time to do all of that, so I'm just focusing really on the first stage of any transition, the losing stage. What is it that is being lost? And then we might be able, if time permits, talk a little bit about that kind of what I refer to as the neutral zone or the middle zone between having lost something and before something new is gained. And we might have a little time to look at that, but what's more important for me is that as we talk about this first kind of stage of transition, you have ownership of the information that I'm trying to pass on to you. So with that kind of said, I'm going to go ahead and launch in. We'll see if this all works out for us. First of all, I think we need to just appreciate loss as change. Loss is certainly something that happens all throughout life. You are constantly experiencing loss. Sometimes the loss that we experience are just normal, expected. They don't really throw us for a curve. We're not agitated by that. How many of you have ever lost your keys? Any of you have lost your keys? Okay, we have all lost our keys before. We might be kind of rushed to try and find them. It might be an inconvenience to us when we can't get our hands back on them. Often we go through that. Where were you last that you remembered? We go through that kind of game and try to retrace our steps so that we can hopefully find our keys. But it's not the end of the world for us when we've lost those keys. It may cause an inconvenience. And very oftentimes people experience losses that are quite trivial in a lot of ways. They don't really amount to a whole lot. I mentioned last time that when I come from Oklahoma City over here to Tulsa, I will lose the signal of my radio station. I will not pick that up again. But I don't, fret about that. I don't get concerned, because as soon as I get back in the car and once I get past the toll place there on the turnpike, I'll pick it right back up there, and everything is as it should be. So some losses are trivial. Even some, in a lot of ways, are welcomed. If you decide to go on a diet and you lose 5 pounds, lose 10 pounds, that is something you want to take place. But sometimes some losses are a little bit more significant in our lives and may sometimes as well cause a little bit more uneasiness, not just inconvenience. Some losses may be even considered as tragic. Certainly the loss of a loved one unexpectedly is a tragic experience in one's life. Sometimes individuals will possibly lose a job, or they might even lose a limb. They'll lose things that are really very much a part of who they are or how they see themselves, and when that loss occurs, it can be quite upsetting. Not on the same level necessarily as the loss of a loved one or a loss of a limb, but I remember a significant loss that took place at a very happy time in the life of our family. When my first son was born, I was a PhD student at the University of Edinburgh, and on the day that my wife's waters broke, she had been in the kitchen working. We were getting ready to host. Our son came 4 weeks early. And so she was in the midst of preparing for a Christmas activity. He was born December 10th. And so we were getting ready for a Christmas gathering at our house, and she was baking. And so she had taken off her wedding ring and had laid it down and was cooking. Then her waters broke, and we had to rush quickly then take her to the hospital. And so everything went fine, went okay with the delivery. But because he was born early, he had jaundice, and so he was going to need to stay under the lights for a while. And so that meant my wife was going to be in the hospital for several days. So she asked, when you go back home, here are a few things that I'm going to need since I'm going to be staying here. And one of the things that she would like to have is she would like to have her wedding rings. Have that on. So I go back home and I put together all the things that she needs and going through. And you know, ladies, that when you ask your husband to get things, that's a very dangerous thing to do, to prepare. But anyway, this is what we had. We didn't have family around, so there was nobody else. That all was laid onto me to go through the house and get some things and to pick up her wedding ring. Now, in my mind and my thoughts, the wedding ring is very delicate, very careful, and you want to make sure that you take good care of it so that you don't lose it. So what do? I put it in some tissue paper, and I put it very carefully in the tissue paper and put it right there in the bag. Well, she gets it there. We're all looking at the baby, goo goo gaga, all that's wonderful thing. But what happens is, in the midst of things, she just sees a piece of tissue and throws it away. And so, she tells me later, where was the wedding ring? Oh, I put it in a piece of tissue. Oh, no, I saw a piece of it. I just thought it was some trash, and I threw it away. She, of course, becomes very, very upset. This is a tremendous loss to her. Well, the nurses see the loss, how upset my wife is, and so one day they come in with gloves in their hands. Okay, right, we're ready to go at it. We're going to go look for your ring. And so they go to the trash bags, and lo and behold, the very first bag that they open up to and look into, there was the tissue with the ring. Great kind of, but the loss of that ring was very traumatic at that moment until it was found. Now, lo and behold, guess what happens when our next son is born? Yes, same thing, same ring. She left the ring back at the house. I don't know why she keeps taking it off. She should keep it on there. But she takes it off. She goes to the hospital. She wants the baby to be. The baby is born, and so she needs she wants her ring back. I've got the ring. This time, no tissue. I'm not going to put it in the tissue. I knew what happened last time, so I'm just going to put the ring in my pockets. In my pockets. I end up, somebody's saying, they already know. Well, that's a sure, safe place. Lo and behold, what happens? I stopped, I think, at a Burger King or something, and somehow or another, at that location, and before I got to the hospital, that ring had come out of my pocket. Of course, I go back and I look for it, but it's gone. It was lost at the first time. It got lost at the second son, so they're equal in that way. But that was a tragic loss for us to lose that wedding ring. Well, we have losses like that all the time. It is just a normal, natural part of life. But that still doesn't diminish the pain that we feel when that loss occurs. Some losses are tragic, despite maybe even any good that's coming forward. Now, have I touched that's been moving ahead? Maybe I have. Some are traumatic, especially when sufficient attention is not given to the transitional issues. By this, I mean that when we go through certain losses, because we are not cognizant, because we are not aware of what all this loss may mean, or how we are appreciating that loss, or how to respond to that loss, because we're not sensitive to the stage at which the loss is occurring, sometimes individuals experience a greater traumatic feeling in light of that loss. And so significant losses do go through transitions, through letting go periods, a neutral zone, and a new beginnings. Whether you're talking about a congregation, you're talking about a business, you're talking about a family, we kind of go through these. Now, insignificant changes like the radio station, losing that radio station, that's not a really traumatic loss for me because I kind of, can suspend anticipation. Some losses, you cannot get back. When a loved one has passed away, that is not coming back in the immediate future. Of course, we have the hope of the resurrection, and we have the expectations of life eternally, and so that kind of reassures us and anticipation of those relationships being restored. But I wanted to share with you just some things about loss, that in particularly the loss that some people may be experiencing because someone that they love has announced that they're no longer going to serve in that capacity, in that role. With Charlie's announcement, different individuals are going to experience that loss in different ways. And so, as a form of health for the congregation, just being aware of what different people are going through and appreciating that experience and looking at ways in which we can approach this loss collectively in a healthy way. So, first of all, we need to think about who is losing what. What does this change mean, first of all, for Charlie and his family? Because he's losing as well. It is a loss that he is initiating. It is no one is asking him to step down. Nobody is forcing him to step down. He is not having to step down because of some kind of traumatic event in his life, but he will be losing. And so you need to just be kind of aware. And there's something as well being lost for his family because of the role that he has had. I remember when my wife and I left from full-time ministry before I came to Oklahoma Christian, there was a huge change. There was a huge loss for us moving from that role into the role of professor. Especially for my wife, there was a loss because she loved being the wife of the minister because that meant she had real involvement in the life of the congregation. People wanted to connect to her as a way of expressing their love and respect for me. So a part of connecting with me meant connecting with her. So there was lots of interested people in her and wanting to develop these kind of connections. And lots of outpouring of love towards our children. But when we moved to that role as professor, well, there wasn't anything for her. All that was gone. So there wasn't, people from the school reaching out to want to connect with her. There wasn't really students that were asking, oh, I really want to get to know your wife. Those kinds of things weren't going on. So she was without really a sense of identity for quite some time. It really took us about 2 or 3 years before we moved really from that, what we had, to the new reality of where we were at. So you need to be thinking a little bit about the loss that they will be going through and wanting to make sure that part of your attention is towards them and supporting them rather than just, this is what I am losing out. Certainly, what does this change mean for Crosstown? And certainly there's lots of changes that are taking place in terms of what you can expect of, this is our minister, this person represents us in such and such a way. This is what we can expect in terms of the skills and the gifts of teaching and of preaching. These are what we've been accustomed to expect in terms of his administrative ability, in terms of his leadership that he's been offering. So yes, you are losing those things. Those things are not going to be available maybe in the same way. Now, I still don't know right now what Charlie and his wife's plans are for their continued presence here, whether or not they will continue on staying here. I would imagine that if they continue on staying and worshiping with this congregation, inevitably his leadership will still be felt, in that you just cannot separate the person from that. That leadership will still be around. His wisdom will still be around. People will still have access to his biblical insights, to his encouragement. So some of that will be gained. It will still be present. But change is nevertheless coming, if not already has taken place. But also, it is a change for the Crosstown community. So you exist here in this place at this time, and not only does Charlie and his family serve this congregation, but they also serve the greater community. And many people know Crosstown because they know Charlie. And they make an impression about Crosstown because of their interaction with Charlie. So if Charlie comes across as a mean-spirited, aloof, cantankerous individual, well then they make an impression. This congregation obviously has had him around for so many years, they must probably in some way reflect that or tolerate that. But if they know him as a generous, gracious, merciful, sensitive, someone that they would go to and talk to if they had a question, that leaves them an impression about the kind of congregation that values that has supported that has had this person in place in the role of the minister, the preaching minister. And so they have related to Charlie, and they will lose. Now, whether or not that loss is certainly not as significant for them as it is for you, that is something that will change. Again, depending upon what Charlie and his family decides to do about staying here and about their involvement in service and work, that too will affect the relationship with the community. So really, I want to talk to you about helping people, helping you to let go, because you are going to have to let go. Letting go is something that will be taking place. So certain people will let go in traumatic ways. They are forced to let go, and having been forced to let go is a reflection maybe of their powerlessness. They don't have control over the situation. And so that creates anxiety, it creates frustration, it can sometimes create anger. Other people let go maybe quite quickly. In other words, they never had much ownership in the first place. It is just another change. Maybe you're a fairly new member here. You don't have much of a relationship with Charlie, and so you're accustomed to congregations, replacing ministers, and so this is just something that naturally occurs with all congregations, and so we'll be moving on to this next stage. And so letting go is not a traumatic experience at all. And others are going to be, somewhere in the middle between that. And there are going to be different levels of the commitment and of the relationships that affect how you let go. First of all, we want to accept the importance of the subjective losses. How you feel about this loss is as important about what you think about this loss. Just to clarify, people will have different thoughts about the significance of this particular loss. Some people might think that, you'll never find another one like Charlie, and so our best days of a pulpit minister are now all behind us. Everyone will be second rate. And so they will think that way. Or some may be thinking, Charlie has provided wonderful leadership and wonderful service for so many years, but now it may be time for a person with different gifts, different abilities, different ways of connecting to the community, serving the community, different ways of helping us to understand God's Word and living out God's Word faithfully. And so you might be quite excited about this. Well, this will be interesting. This will be curious. Change is not a death blow to you, and so this kind of change offers up all new kinds of possibilities that you're curious about. So that may be what you think. But people also have feelings. And when we ignore the feelings, we really end up hurting the transition from one stage to the next. So this is really kind of to leaders and to ministry leaders. Listen as well for the feelings that people have, not just the thoughts that they have about change. People may feel depressed. People may feel anger. Some people, I hope it's not a many, some people may feel joy and excitement. Not because they did not like Charlie, but they love new stuff. And this is going to provide new opportunities, new changes. So people are going to have different feelings, and those feelings are important and significant. And people have a right to own their feelings. So if a person is angry, we are not to make them feel guilty. Why are you angry? It's not good for you to feel angry. Or if someone is depressed, it's not our role to judge someone. Why are you depressed? Are you elevating Charlie above God or above Jesus? We're not trying to lay some kind of spiritual guilt trip upon people and their right to feel how they feel. So accept the importance of those feelings and recognize that there will be a diverse one. Don't be surprised by overreaction. Sometimes people will react in a way to announcement of a loss, announcement of change that really you think is overblown. Some people may weep bitterly and weep often. And that to you may be somewhat strange or unusual. You don't want to go to individuals who are weeping and saying, now, stop crying, everything will be okay. You don't want to patronize people because their reaction is expressing this emotion that they have that they are allowed to possess. And don't be surprised if some people don't get really angry about it. That too is something that certainly can take place. Acknowledge the loss openly and sympathetically. So when someone says to you, I just don't know if I can handle this. Now that might sound to you like an overreaction. If someone says, I just don't know if I can handle this loss. Your first instinction might be to try and reassure them, oh, yes, you can. Yes, you'll be able to handle this. But first of all, what that person may be saying to you is, I want someone to hear how I am feeling about this loss. That's an invitation to you to engage them. This loss is big. This loss is significant. Now, some people may not say anything to you. In other words, this loss is something they're accustomed to loss and change and may never say anything at all about it. They'll just kind of go on with this as everything else. But you do want to acknowledge that we know that the loss is taking place. We know that different people are responding to it in different ways. There are different levels of hurts. And I think what the elders are trying to say here is we are sympathetic to that loss. And I would say even more than sympathetic, they are empathetic to that loss. In other words, they feel that pain too. They love Charlie. And while they know this change provides some opportunities for them and some challenges for them, it is something that they are experiencing as well. And so when they come to you and want to talk to you about what you are feeling, you need to know as well, they too feel concerned, sad. They too feel maybe uneasy, disappointed. But at the same time, they also have other feeling of desires for the good for Charlie and his family and what they need at this time. So, but acknowledge the loss openly, sympathetically. Let's see if I can go back. Expect and accept the different signs of grieving. Some of you are familiar with the work that has been done about grieving and that there are different stages that people will go through. Not always linearly. They may go back and forth through different stages. Some people will not accept the loss at all. In other words, oh, no, this is not really happening. I thought this was going to happen, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. I just can't accept that this will take place. There's that denial stage. And then there can be that anger stage. But sometimes there's a bargaining stage that goes through loss, through a grieving stage. In other words, well, maybe it's because we haven't done something good enough that he would want to stay. Maybe what we need to do is, if we will just give maybe more sabbatical time, or maybe if we can provide more opportunities for him to do what he really wants to do, then he will continue on staying in that role. And so in some people's mind, I want to stop the impact of this loss by bargaining with Charlie, or bargaining with the family, or bargaining with the elders in order to somehow do that. So people will be going through different stages and at different times. No one goes through that. Not everybody goes through those stages at the same rate. Compensate for loss. So when you experience one loss, we oftentimes want to find out how is what I am losing going to be replaced. Now sometimes a loss is not replaced. But what we feel that we have lost, we look for some kind of compensation. Take even in a tragic a situation of the loss of a spouse, either through divorce or through death. When someone has lost a spouse, they look for those things that spouse may have provided, someone else, maybe themselves or someone else in the family, needs to provide. Maybe it's just even basic tasks that would be done around the house. Maybe it's taking care of the finances. Maybe it's providing the plans for every day. Maybe it's the words of wisdom. Maybe it's just the physical presence of someone. So someone else might need to offer up a replacement or a compensation for that loss. And so too, as you go through this loss with Charlie, maybe it's starting now, but it may not be felt until, I think, March 1st is when Charlie officially retires. So at that stage, there's going to be this loss. I don't anticipate, I could be wrong, but I do not expect the elders will have Charlie one Sunday being the pulpit minister, and the next Sunday you have another person step right in. I don't know if they're planning to do that. I would advise against it. I think that there does need to be time for that reality to be set in, to be realized, to be appreciated, to be respected before the next person would step in. But that, of course, is according to the wisdom and the unique situation of Crosstown. So I don't want to say one pattern fits all. But we look for compensation for that loss. And give people information repeatedly. So certainly with this, what's going on here is people are going to start asking questions if they haven't already. That will start increasing as the weeks go by. Well, what are you going to do about getting us somebody else? And so people are going to want this compensation. Now, they're going to want, well, I hope you'll get a person like Charlie who does this. Someone else will say, well, I think one area that we've been missing is this. And so part of asking the questions, what are you doing, and asking for information, that actually, in part, asking for information just may be, I just would like to know. But sometimes people are asking information because they are anxious. And so you want to recognize that there is anxiety. There may be fear that some people have. Oh man, when we have Charlie, things ran so smoothly. We get somebody else, and what if things don't go smoothly? Or what if we get somebody else and some of the people in the congregation doesn't like that person and they leave? Or what if something else kind of happens and it may hurt us in some way? There's this kind of unknown quantity that is there. And so what some people, or many people I think, like or desire is they want information about how things are going. So as information is coming, they feel a sense that this loss is being controlled. This loss is being treated. Somebody is still in charge. Somebody is still making sure we're going in the right direction. And so the role of, I think, elders here and the roles of other ministry leaders is to give information in lots of ways at lots of times. Not just Sunday morning when you make announcements, not just in your bulletins, but there are lots of ways in which you communicate with the church. And so use that, lots of those informations, to communicate repeatedly. Now, let me stop there, sir, because I'm noticing my time. questions that someone might have so far about loss and recognizing loss? Anything that anybody would like to ask or address? I think I need to. Now look, I've got like 6 or 7 minutes. So you got a question, you got to ask it now. Now is the time. Don't be thinking, well, I wish you would have said this. This is the time to do it. I'm looking. I'm watching for a hand. If I don't see it, I'm going to move on. Okay. You had that opportunity. All right. So, some other things. Define what's over and what's not. So, yes, some things will be over. And there's, I should go back about who's losing what. The congregation, one of the things the congregation needs to understand about loss is the elders are losing. The elders are losing something here. The elders have benefited from Charlie's presence in elders' meetings with his wisdom and insights. Now, it doesn't mean that they might not still invite Charlie to come in at times when they have some decisions to be making and lean upon his wisdom and his insight. Of course, that's going to have to be done with a great deal of kind of sensitivity, especially after you've had another minister in and how that minister's relationship is with Charlie. But that kind of constant presence, they're losing that. And they have relied upon that. And they have valued that. So that's going to be over. And there are going to be other things that you are no longer going to have, even if you have Charlie and his family here. One of the things that's going to be over with is many of you have had Charlie come very close to your family. And as a part of coming close to your family, he has known you, and he's known your life and your situation, and he has been aware of that when he has come to preach from God's Word. And when he's preaching from God's Word, one of the things that happens with ministers is as they are preaching, they are cognizant of what their words, what their interpretations are doing for people in different situations. So their preaching is formed and shaped by the knowledge of the lives that they are invested in. So that's going to be over. That's going to end, at least for a while, until the next person comes and they too get a chance to be invested into your life and get to know you, and they will go through that same experience. Many of you have been able to enjoy knowing that someone has been preaching who knows your circumstances, who knows your situations. So you need to find what's over, but what isn't. It's not going to be over that you're going to have someone who will preach from God's Word. You already have people here who can preach from that. You will undoubtedly go through a process in which you're going to have someone who will make that their full-time focus. That is not going to be over with. And it's not going to be over with to have an administration. You probably already have in place people who already carry out much of the administrative work for the church, and someone else will be able to provide that. So to find what's over, mark the ending. So with significant losses. Now, I did not mark the ending of losing that radio transition when I came over here. I didn't stop to celebrate or thank you for the radios providing that. I didn't do that. But with significant changes, you do need to mark the ending of that stage. So our oldest son went off to college a couple of years ago. So we celebrate, when you end high school and as you're moving now to that next stage. You've done the same thing with your children. So you mark important occasions. Well, this is certainly an important occasion. You are grateful that you have Charlie here with you and that you will be able to allow him to see and to feel the appreciation, the honor, the respect that you have for him. So I'm sure already, as the word got out about Charlie resigning, that plans may already be underway. How are we going to mark this? How are we going to celebrate this ending in a way that is fitting, that is appropriate, that doesn't embarrass Charlie and his families, but at the same time communicates what you need to communicate? So how do you mark the ending? treat the past with respect, celebrate with a time of thanksgiving. And so by that, what I primarily mean is make sure that this ending will be done with a time of recognizing what God has done. I see my time is just about up, so I've got two last points. While you want to thank Charlie and his family for what they have contributed, it would be idolatrous if the focus is only on Charlie and his family. The praise and thanksgiving goes to God because God has provided this gift for you, so that when you mark this ending, it is a time for the congregations to turn and to recognize that all blessings come from God. And just because God's blessing of Charlie and his family is ending in this role, that doesn't mean God's desire to bless and enrich your life ends. He is still there. That is not over with. And so you need to, though, mark a time, this time, of giving thanks and praise to God and how His richness, of how His grace has been felt and experienced through this particular area. I'll just put these last two up and then I'll end. Sit down. Let people take a piece of the old with them. Now, I don't know how you do that with Charlie, but maybe there are pictures that you take, or maybe there are certain things that you can do. A great illustration I told last time was a congregation, the Dallas area that I knew. They were moving from one building to a new building. Well, it's actually on the same property, but they were tearing down the old church building and building a new one. Well, for a lot of people, the older church building had great memories with it. It had attachment to them. Well, the elders wisely chose to take some of the actual building materials from the old building and used it as a part of the entrance into the auditorium, so that when people, older members who remember that building, walked into that auditorium, they saw in the columns and in the kind of smaller walls part of that older building, buildings that they sacrificed to help erect. It was continuing on with them. So what are ways in which all the great legacy, the great heritage that you have with Charlie's ministry, how can that be move on? And then emphasize how what is lost is continuous with what really matters. In other words, by this I mean, why is this loss for many of you so significant? It is because what it represents. It represents loyalty and graciousness and self-sacrifice and generosity. That's what's continuing. Those values will continue regardless of whether or not Charlie and his family are here, because those values are why he stayed here. You supported that, and those are the things that this eldership values, your ministry leaders values. So value those things. Well, thank you for your attention and participation. I know our time is up, and so I guess I have to end, do I? Yep. Do you have any last words?
This isn't on. Anyway, I just want to thank John for being here. I hope you learned some things that will help us as we go through. I just want to take just a minute to let you know where we are right now. We are receiving quite a few references for people for us to look at as we begin looking at who we would find as a next minister. We've already started having conversations with some of these people. We haven't brought any in to actually talk in person, but we've had some good conversations. We have some men that will be coming in the next month that we'll be talking to here. Also, you'll start seeing some of us maybe not be here on Sunday. I know you probably won't see me and Mary here on Sunday because we're going to be out visiting someone. They don't know we're coming, but we're going to go and check them out. So those activities are going. We talk about it every week. As for recognizing, honoring, we're doing that too. If you have any thoughts on doing that, talk to Arquisha or Michelle Clayton. they are sort of helping us in that activity of how we would recognize and honor Charlie going forward. But anyway, just wanted to give you that little quick update. Again, John, thank you for being with us, and we'll take a break.